Hey, everybody. Here's a quick word about our sponsors. First one being LASRApp. You can find them at www.lasrapp.com. They're a laser activated shot reporter. They're amazing what it can do, all of the things that you can do with it, multiple guns, multiple locations, any type of target. They have a smorgasbord of items on their website store. Check them out. Use the affiliate link below or on our website, casualshooterpodcast.com, and use the code CSP 2021 for up to 15% off items not covered by the affiliate link. Next up, we have Gun Butter. I am one of those people that I clean my gun all the time because I feel like you've always got to clean the crud and put a fresh coat of lubrication on it. That's because of the stuff we had to use in the military. I didn't like it, but I have finally landed on something I can get behind, and that is gun butter. I did not shoot. I'm. I did not clean my gun at all at nationals. I did not clean it after the match before nationals, nor the match before that. And there's still gun butter oil on my gun. And I'm going to be using their grease on the lugs of my bolt gun. Next, we have HOIST. It is IV level hydration. It's clinically proven to absorb 110% faster than water. You've got all the right ingredients of your electrolytes that you need: magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium. It's all in there. A little bit of sugar, but that mixes the right amount to make it absorb rapidly so it's not sitting in your belly and weighing you down. So check it out. Get hydrated, stay hydrated. And thanks for checking out our sponsors. It helps with the podcast. Hey, everybody. Here's a quick word about our sponsors. First one being LASRApp. You can find them at www.lasrapp.com. They're a laser activated shot reporter. They're amazing what it can do, all of the things that you can do with it, multiple guns, multiple locations, any type of target. They have a smorgasbord of items on their website store. Check them out. Use the affiliate link below or on our website, CasualShooterPodcast.com, and use the code CSP 2021 for up to 15% off items not covered by the affiliate link. Next up, we have Gun Butter. I am one of those people that I clean my gun all the time because I feel like you've always got to clean the crud and put a fresh coat of lubrication on it. That's because of the stuff we had to use in the military. I didn't like it, but I have finally landed on something I can get behind, and that is gun butter. I did not shoot. I'm. I did not clean my gun at all at nationals. I did not clean it after the match before nationals, nor the match before that. And there's still gun butter oil on my gun. And I'm going to be using their grease on the lugs of my bolt gun. Next, we have HOIST. It is IV level hydration. It's clinically proven to absorb 110% faster than water. You've got all the right ingredients of your electrolytes that you need: magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium. It's all in there. A little bit of sugar, but that mixes the right amount to make it absorb rapidly so it's not sitting in your belly and weighing you down. So check it out. Get hydrated, stay hydrated. And thanks for checking out our sponsors. It helps with the podcast.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. Now, this week's guest, I don't even know where to start. She competes and has competed in just about everything. If you go to her website, she's competed in M14 service rifle, NCAA air rifle and pistol, 3-gun, Bianchi Cup, NRA action pistol, USPSA, IPSC rifle and shotgun, Palma rifle, and summer biathlon. She writes and blogs for numerous websites and magazines. Her entire family shoots or competes. Her son just won the inaugural Prairie Fire Rank competition. Join me in giving a warm round of applause, Becky Yackley. Hi, Becky. Thanks
Hey, David, how are you?
Good. You would just take a moment and introduce yourself. Anything else you want to add or?
Well, that was a nice introduction. I thank you. So yes, my whole family competes. My name is Becky Yackley. I grew up shooting. I grew up competing, hunting. My dad was a gunsmith for Krieger barrels for over 35 years, and the whole family's stayed involved in shooting. And my husband, he has been the OIC of the Reserve Action Shooting Team, and very involved with the Reserve Marine Corps Marksmanship and Marine Corps Marksmanship Symposium, etc. So we all shoot and we love it. And I'd like to, the writing and all that other stuff you mentioned, that all helps us be able to do what we do. So I don't know. That's us. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being on. This is going to be a fun conversation because there's a lot of similarities actually. Very interesting about your husband because I was curious, about all that, and we'll get into that more later. But I also, as a side note, wanted to say that his political beliefs are spot on. Just saying. Feel free to pass that along.
I will. I'll pass it along to him. It's always a difficult thing because I think people who work in the firearm industry, it's generally accepted everyone has pretty similar political beliefs with regards to our rights and our freedom. So it's something that I think people generally just assume everyone kind of thinks the same way. But when you work as a sponsored shooter, then you have to be a little more delicate, I think, in how you talk about things. But I don't think you should hide you should hide your views. I think you should speak out about things that are happening because it affects you, your kids, your future, the country. So it is important to talk about it.
Totally agree. Absolutely. And I've been shooting I'll say this. I've been around competition shooting and shooting since the 70s. Because as we were discussing before we started, my dad was the head coach of the Marine Corps rifle team. So that's how I first got exposed to shooting in the early to mid 70s. And I don't know where I was going with that, but I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, goodness.
No,
I know what I was going to say, but I'm also a healthcare provider, and I'm not afraid to speak out about the nonsense that we just had for the last few years.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to tell patients in their houses that it's nonsense. I just do it in a polite way.
Right.
So if anybody out there is still wearing masks, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Before I go any further. So Becky, what I normally do is ask people 5 very personal, detailed questions that stumps them every time.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, my favorite movie. So it would have to be Last of the Mohicans, I think.
Ooh, good movie.
Yeah.
Very good.
And yeah, I think it would be Last of the Mohicans. My grandpa I have a book that was my grandpa's that was, like the book the movie's based on. But a really, really old, like 1920 something edition. And I remember reading that as a kid. And yeah, that movie came out when I was in college, actually. But no, I think that's one of my all-time favorite movies. And Quigley Down Under, that's another good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
I definitely like that one. Now, since we've been, again, going back to before we were on the air, the personal stuff we were talking about, my dad was Cherokee, and Riddle means farmer.
Ah, interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, moving along. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask the follow-up question with that was, so which did you like better, the book or the movie?
I think the movie, it was a
Okay.
very well done movie. Very well done movie. Lots of great quotes and imagery and all that. And I think if you went back and reread the book, there's always little things you find when books versus movies. There's reasons to do both.
Yeah, but visually, the movie was stunning. The
It was beautiful.
photography, the scenery, everything was great. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's one of those movies that, even if it didn't necessarily follow the book exactly, it kind of made up for it. So,
Yeah, when we used to actually go when we were down at Camp Lejeune, we would go hiking out on the western part of North Carolina out to Chimney Rock where they filmed. So the first time we ever went out there, because we wanted to film like where they had the big scene at the end of the movie and they're running up that trail. It's really a cool place. If you go to Chimney Rock State Park in North Carolina, it's a great hike, but it's right on the edge and it is so scary. It is obvious that for the movie they took a lot of the safety rails and things out. So it's a really cool place to go visit.
I've been there and I didn't even know that that was where they filmed it.
Yeah, like those upper trails where you walk above the waterfall at the top.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Had no idea. Now I'm gonna have to go back.
yeah,
Rewatch the movie and then go back. Okay.
yeah.
How about your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite book. I don't know. I'd
Well, we
probably
have.
go back to things I've read as a child, like the Little House in the Prairie series, and things that I think my favorite stuff tends to be like less modern, just because it's just like simpler and good. One of my sons, who will remain nameless, has been watching some movies they're older and it's a series and it's kind of a thriller horror thing, and I'm just looking at it like, how can you? I don't think it's good to consume these things. I think the stuff we put in front of us, that people don't really realize what they're consuming, and does that affect you? So, it's like I'm kind of like, well, you're an adult, but I'm still going to tell you. I do think that this stuff isn't necessarily
I'm
going to shape
still
you.
your mother.
I'm still your mother. I'm still going to tell you, like, I don't think putting dark and just evil stuff is a great thing for movies. I mean, I get it that it's like a mystery or whatever. I get that aspect of it, or people trying to tell a story, but I still think that. So yeah, going back to books, I'd say I really love Last of the well, I love Little House in the Prairie books. I don't know, like there's more like concrete books, but I think I would I don't know, it's hard to pin down.
Okay. And we have found that it seems to be kind of a lost art too. Like
Yeah.
reading books is, I guess, the advent. Thank God Al Gore invented the internet, so we could consume
Use a Kindle
stuff.
or Amazon app. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
Um,
took me a while actually to get used to reading electronically, books, I mean, because I'm so used to holding a book and flipping through it and highlighting stuff, and I can find stuff fast.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm still
Um,
not a fan of ebooks, but
I think the other, like, if I had to say, like, favorite books, there's several C.S. Lewis books. So everyone knows him because of
mm,
Narnia, right? But he has a
right.
lot of really nice books on other things. So I'd say like almost any C.S. Lewis book.
Okay. So you have a favorite author anyway.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, one of the guys who used to be on here regularly liked to ask, who is your favorite superhero? I don't know if you have one. If not, let's go with historical figure.
Ooh, historical figure. I don't know, like Amelia Earhart or
Mm,
um, yeah, I would say any of the founding fathers in a lot of ways, like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. Um, there's a book I read about, and I'm trying to remember who it was. If it was, I think it was, I think it was, I'll come back to it later.
Okay.
Or see if I can remember it. Anyhow, like I think a lot of, figures in American history, I'd call those superheroes. My middle son and I were just talking about this yesterday, that the state of the things in the world in our country right now, you have to consider what is the answer to fix some of the problems we have. And you look back at history and how is it that we got the freedoms that we have, and how is it we got here? And people had to give up an awful lot. And it's really, it hits you to think like, is that going to have to happen again? Are people going to have to, give up their lives and everything they worked for
Right.
to,
Well,
to
and
enact change? And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And I believe you guys lived in Northern Virginia, didn't you, at one time?
Yeah, we lived for about
Okay.
like over a decade off and on in Fredericksburg, Stafford, or not Fredericksburg, but Stafford and Woodbridge area.
Okay. Well, I,
Yeah.
I work in Prince William County, so that's
Okay.
Woodbridge. I grew up in Stafford. I now live in Spotsylvania, but so
You're a little further out.
yeah. So, Madison and Jefferson were practically neighbors.
Yeah.
So I
James
can
Madison's home's
imagine
so cool to see.
it is. I love that place.
Yeah.
But I am sure that the two of them are probably rolling in their grave the way the Constitution is being treated. And
Yeah.
having been to Mount Vernon and walked George Washington's property
Right.
and learned about him, I can only imagine the choice words he would have for politicians these days,
Yeah.
based on
I'm
his
with you.
beliefs.
And seeing the homes where these people lived and everything that they worked for, like, so we've gone to Jefferson's, Madison's, and Mount Vernon, Washington, and seeing that they had this entire other life and all these interests, and kind of a very sustainable providing for yourself, and that whole ethos that is kind of lost on a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
So
and the fact that Madison, had 4,000 books in his library that he studied just to come up with the form of government that we have today,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I could go on for hours just about that. So, all right. So you have competed all across the board, rifle, shotgun, pistol, in almost every discipline. What is your favorite gun and what is your favorite caliber? And they don't have to marry up.
Ooh, that's a big question. So a lot of times people will say like, "What's your favorite gun to shoot?" And I'll generally say it's what I'm working with at the moment, because so I did grow up shooting rifle, right? So I shot long range and I shot small bore and I shot air rifles. So everything that was very accuracy focused, very like fundamentals based. You had to do things just so. Like I reloaded for myself and my dad, and like you learn to do everything just so. So then like pistol shooting, I didn't do a lot of it. Shotgun shooting, I think the most I shot a shotgun as a kid was for hunter safety. They took us out and we shot like sport clays. It was like under the lights at night kind of a thing. And I didn't really like it because no one really told me how to shoot the shotgun or how to hold it properly. And so when we started competing, we started with like local 3-gun stuff down at Fredericksburg when they had local matches down there. And this was like 2011 or so. And it was really fun. And I think we had a pump 22 that we'd run. And we had put this really fat rubber butt pad on it for the kids, so it was a little more comfortable. Or fat 20 gauge shotgun. And I think I started realizing like, well, they're all fun. They all have their own uses. There's purposes to each of them, and there's reasons why different calibers and different configurations are fun to shoot. Like pump guns can be really fun to shoot. It's also nice to have a semi-auto shotgun. And the same with rifle. Like there's purposes for bolt rifles, and there's bolt rifles that are, something you'd prefer for long range. And then there's, a need to have an AR-15 and a drum mag. So I don't know. I think if I had to say what's my favorite, I would probably say my favorite is the one in my hand that I'm shooting. Because honestly, like a favorite caliber, well, 9mm because you can use it in so many firearms, right? So many platforms, your PCCs, your carbine, you know, like so many things. And it's common, it's easy to find, and there's so many different pistols you could shoot. But then again, like your rifle is technically more useful, right? Um, I so I don't know that I can have a favorite. I think that I would say I'm an American and I have many guns and they all have their favorite purposes and reasons to shoot and use them. So I don't think anyone should have just a favorite gun or caliber. I think
All right.
you should have a bunch of them.
So your answer is all of them.
All of them. All of them.
There we
Every
go.
one of them. Like it's fun to shoot a
Okay.
50 cal. It's fun to shoot a 22. It's fun to shoot an air gun. It's all good. They
You
all have their
know,
purpose.
I just interviewed Ashlyn Champagne, and she did not find shooting a 50 cal very fun.
Well, I think if you are set up on it properly, that makes a big difference, you know. If you're shooting it in a way where you're not having so to me, ideally, the best way to shoot it is if you're laying prone on the ground behind it and you get as much of your mass of your body behind it as you can, then it's kind of fun. It's not going to hurt you. If you're trying to shoot it offhand or you're a small person and you have just your shoulder behind it, it might not be very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it pushed her too, because she said she had abrasions on her elbows. So I wonder what type of position she had.
Yeah. I have a niece who's 5'2" and all of 120 pounds, and we got her behind it, and it was just so funny because we have a bolt rifle, and it was just hilarious because the gun is taller and bigger than her, and she shot that thing, but we got her set up prone on the grass with a mat and everything so that it was enjoyable.
There you go.
So I think
That
a lot of
sounds like-
people's a lot of
Right.
people's experiences with firearms, whether good or bad, depend on how they are prepared to shoot them and the people that are helping them do that.
Or not helping them to do that.
Or not
yes.
helping them.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like Morgan, where she said the first time she shot a shotgun in competition, the barrel was dragging on the ground because it was so big,
Right.
so
right.
much bigger than her.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So you've got a couple of last questions because your experience is so different than most of the guests I have on. My first favorite question for you, and by favorite I mean your favorite. Now you've shot around the world, all different places around the world and the US. What is your favorite range that you've shot at?
That's an easy one. I
Okay.
think the favorite range I've shot at was Sweden for Rifle World Shoot because it was so varied, so different. We really did not do anything in a bay. We had stages where we shot up in the air from a low port with rifles. It was
Like a
crazy.
platform?
No. Like there were like openings in the wall, ports to shoot through, but they were low ports and your targets were up high. So zero backer, nothing. Just out.
Oh, I see what
And
you're saying.
then we shot one stage, we shot the mini IPSC, like the mini turtle targets. And we were maybe 50 yards-ish standing on a stump. There was no way to go kneeling or anything. You just had offhand. There were no shoots. Like it was legit rifle shooting and like all different types. Then there were rocks and you shot like 200, 300 yards across a lake. It was just really cool. It was some of the most enjoyable, and it was just beautiful. The weather was beautiful. I loved Sweden. So I think Sweden, that was my
Okay.
favorite range. And it was a military facility. So they were able to do a lot of things that people otherwise wouldn't be able to do in matches. And that was really, really cool.
Okay, I guess that would help then.
Yeah.
Okay, so of all the different disciplines you've competed in, which one has been your favorite?
So I'd say I don't want to say like I have two favorites, but I think I enjoy 3-gun the most because it's normal people and everybody is super welcoming and friendly, you know? And I say that, but so consider that shooting in other countries. So like IPSC, it's one of my favorites because you do get to meet people from all over the world. And everyone has such different things they bring. It's really neat, and it's really neat to see these other cultures. It's neat to see the unification in beliefs, like we started talking about, people's belief systems outside of shooting, right? And they're very universal as you go around the world. There has not been a world event we've been at where somebody from another country is telling us how they're envious of the freedoms we have, and I don't say to them, it's too bad your ancestors did not have a revolution several hundred years. That these people are all envious of what we have, but they believe many of the same things we do. So that said, the people that are able to compete in some of these countries are not average Joe, average Jane that you see here competing in something like 3-gun or USPSA, or trap or whatever. I mean, so most of the shooting sports are very friendly to entry level. I'd say 3-gun's probably the most friendly, and that you have people who really want to be there and they really want other people to be there, so they're ready to say, use my stuff, borrow my gun. Why wouldn't you? So you see a lot of that. And I think when you get into USPSA, IPSC, higher level, where you're going to have people they probably invested several $1,000s in their pistol. And they get a little less willing to be that helpful. Or their desire to be the top overtakes that sense of community, I'd say. So I think that that's something about 3-gun that's really nice, is that people want to be there and enjoy themselves. And yes, they want to perform well, but there is an overall, I think, different feel to it.
Okay.
So, and then
it seems like it's not as prevalent as it was.
It does seem like there are fewer matches lately, which is sad. But I think that there's layers of reasons why that is. But I do think some of it comes down to the number of matches. There are so many matches that people kind of get spread too thin, that we have had a lot of issues with travel, the price of gas, the price of an availability of ammo. So things like that have affected what is out there for people to partake in, what competitions they can get to. But I want to just go back really quick what I was saying about IPSC and all these people from around the world, that you see people competing in IPSC and in different countries. They have different restrictions and different hurdles in order to compete. So, for example, we learned when we went to Russia that if you want to shoot a pistol, you can't actually own a pistol. And you're going to have to start with shooting shotgun and show competency and compete in X number of competitions each year. And then you could then own that shotgun. And then you can own a rifle. So like there are these steps, but nobody can ever own a pistol. Their club can own a pistol. Now they have PCC, and PCC is 9mm, right? So it's sort of like they're working toward getting access to 9mm, to ownership of pistols. So I think that competition means different things to people in different countries. So I appreciate IPSC, and it is one of my favorites because I think it shows the universal need for firearms and the understanding that there should be access to them.
So that's I assume then, I mean, in your conversations with these people from other countries, it's all about governmental control and all of that is why they can't own these
some of
things.
it's just understanding too on the part of people who don't own firearms, and we see that here as well. We see people who don't own firearms, who never grew up around firearms, and they have a very different understanding of what it means to own one, to compete with one, the reasons you'd have one. And so I think that is it's something, it's comforting to see in a way that everybody around the world faces the same issues. Sometimes it's disheartening because you see here, the work in social media and the work in marketing areas of the firearms world. You see the prejudice or the inaccessibility. You might see someone who has a very pro firearm related page and they're just throttled down. And so how can you reach those people who don't know?
The bias.
Yeah, the bias. So I think it's like common beliefs, common troubles. Like it's a unifying thing. You see that it's happening all over the world. We're just the last ones who still have some freedoms.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta have to fight to keep those So since you've shot high power and you've shot 3-gun, I feel like high power is more expensive than 3-gun. Am I right or wrong?
I think I mean, you just have one gun, one type of ammo. You
But
don't necessarily need an optic. I mean, now everyone's using an optic, right? But you
right.
could shoot it without. I mean, you could shoot 3-gun without an optic. I think I don't know. If you asked me, just I would say I think 3-gun's more expensive because you're going to have to have a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun and ammo for all of them and the associated gear. You could shoot high power. You could use a nice used canvas jacket and a sling and a rifle and your ammo. Eyes and ear
Yeah, but if
protection.
you're going to compete seriously, you're going to have a spotting scope, a decent
Yeah.
one.
And you're going to need a
Doesn't have to be
barrel.
top of the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gun, the spotting scope, the rifle scope. Even for people who are shooting service rifle now, they use an LPVO.
Right.
I I I was out of rifle competition shooting for, I guess it was over 20 years. And when I went in shooting iron sights, and I'm looking down and I'm like,
You're the only one.
everybody has an LPVO. I'm like, how does everybody have a scope on their rifle? What is this? This is not an any rifle, any sight match. So what is it? Well, then I found out
Right.
the rules had changed because
What
the
is it a one
military
to
had
four?
changed.
What is it? Like
It
what can
is a
you
1-to-4.
1 to
Yeah.
4, yeah. So I mean you could take
And I
your
think it's a maximum of a 32 millimeter objective lens.
okay, okay. So it's I mean it's a decent enough scope.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a really like a PRS scope, but you could still get like a Burris MTAC for $400, right? Ish.
Yeah.
Um, and you could I mean, I don't know, it's like I don't even know what people are using. They're doing an M14 and they're putting a nice barrel on it and they're getting a betting
Well,
job.
they're doing no. Oh, this is so
They
funny,
have they
Becky.
have like
We both
synthetic
think the
stocks
same
and
thing.
right.
Now they're all shooting ARs, match grade ARs with big bull barrels on
Oh,
them,
right, right, right.
you know, and the
But is it
LPVO. So you're still expensive guns.
but it's not like it's not a chassis. Or are there chassis? I bet there's chassis now. Or does it have
There
to be an air?
are, but there are so many different. Like the only thing I care about anymore. I started to get back into service rifle, but then I was like, you know what? I'm not. I don't. I was anyway. I decided not to do that, and I'm like, I'm just going to shoot any rifle, any sight matches. But even then, the guns that I use are not cheap. The ammo is
Right.
not cheap. Like I load my. Hold
Right.
on. Excuse me. I load my own 6.5 Creed, and the federal premium match stuff, the gold medal match, that stuff shoots great out of my 308. So I just use that. But it was costing me one weekend match alone would cost $80 just in ammo.
Right.
And this was 6 years ago.
Well, and I think
So
so if you did 3-gun, you have to consider, okay, how big of a match is it? Am I shooting pistol? So shotgun right now is like $9 a box, $10 a box, right? So if you use 200 rounds of shotgun at $9 a box, then
I
you've got
haven't
your
bought
rifle.
shotgun in a while. So
Yeah, then you have your rifle ammo. Then you have your pistol ammo. Are you reloading those? Are you buying those factory? What are you doing? I think 3-gun would be more, to be honest. I do think
okay.
that there is a financial component in why you see a decline in it. And I know that there's so much talk about people, like USPSA for a while last year they had the first 2-gun match where they had rifle and pistol. And it was very fun. And part of the idea was that there were so many people who don't want a shotgun or own a shotgun. They don't enjoy it. They don't want the cost of getting, because if you get a shotgun set up for 3-gun that has the gunsmithing done to it, you're probably looking at least $1,000, right? At least, like the buying one used. So
Wow.
yeah, so there is an investment in the gun. So yeah, I think that there are barriers that are financial to it, but that doesn't mean somebody can't do like what we did when we started, where we would go to Fredericksburg and we'd take the 20 gauge with a big, a pump 20 gauge that was not set up for anything at all, and just go have fun,
Right.
just go
Yeah.
enjoy yourself. That's what you're supposed to do. Like, yeah, that's what competitions are about. Yes, being better skilled and perfecting all those fundamentals you need to hit targets, but enjoying it, right?
Absolutely. So getting back to where we were, now I normally ask people, when did you first shoot a gun? How did you find competition? All of that. But your website said that you first shot a gun at the age of 5 and you found competition at 14. And
Yeah.
our conversation earlier was you started in high power rifle.
Yes.
So how did you go from first shooting a gun at 5 to shooting high power at 14 and shooting an M14 at the age of 14? That's a big gun to be shooting.
It was. Well, first we shot M1 Garands. How about that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was a little not fun. Um, so yeah, so when I was about 14, my dad had been gunsmithing for Krieger for a little while. They're very good family friends. They're godparents to two of my siblings. And we
Ooh.
grew up going to school with their kids, so they're family friends. Um, and my dad was like, "Hey, Jim Owens, who is a former coach for the Marine Corps rifle team, was doing a class down in Milwaukee." And so we decided to go. And my mom, my sisters, two or three of my sisters went along too. And so for that summer, we did a few like shorter matches, like just like the 80 round course or whatever. Um, and then I liked it. I would go with my dad, and I shot. They had a match to qualify, like they were doing teams for the junior team to go to Camp Perry. And so I shot, and then if you did well enough, there were M14s that they had that you could then take and use for the year. And so I had an M14, and my dad kind of went over it. It was one of the, like how am I blanking on the name? They have the big facility in Talladega, CMP.
Oh, CMP. Yeah.
Like I think they were CMP that they were purchased. So they were, I mean, they were decent, but they weren't amazing. So we took that gun apart. My dad put a Krieger, like a barrel on it that had been like not thrown in the scrap bin per se, but there was something cosmetically wrong. And he's like, "Hey, we're going to use this one," and put a good barrel on. We bedded it. We got it all, you know, it was a great little rifle. And I shot that for 4 years. I mean, I weighed a little less when I was 14. I was a little shorter, a little smaller. So I would get beat up because my cheek weld, my thumb would sometimes, I felt like I had two different, like I can still recall this. I felt like I would have two different sort of cheek welds, like one where I was high and one where I was a little back further. And I would get it, my collarbone would get hit pretty bad, and my face. One time someone's like, "Did you get stung by a bee?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Your face." I'm like, "Oh, it's just my thumb's hitting my face so hard." Because I just wasn't a very big
Wow.
person. But I shot well. We one year, the one boy that I was paired up with for Whistler Boy, we were one of the top teams, and I think that I think there was a lot of pressure on a kid, and so it was really sad because we were like, "Oh, we're one of the top teams," and we weren't. And then we had like maybe the 600-yard line or something. Um, but yeah, it was fun. It was a good experience because I think a lot of people don't realize how, like zeroing rifles, for instance. Our oldest son, Tim, he's been top in the world with a rifle, with a shotgun, with a pistol, and he's an amazing shooter. But there's times when my husband and I hear him shoot a group, we're like, he is not going that fast. Is he really? That is not shooting that big for a group. And you know, like the absolute consistency you need for precision. You know, like we shot a rifle and air pistol in college, and you know, like the silly, you know, you're standing here with your air rifle and you move it from the stand to your hip and you shoot, and you're shooting at like a little pinpoint downrange 33
Yeah.
feet away. That it's just about complete and utter consistency. So I think that that's a really great skill. And we had a lot of people when we started shooting like USPSA and stuff say it's good to have those fundamentals, that accuracy background, because it's easy to go fast. It's a lot more difficult to slow down and have control. And I think that that's something that's very true. Like, you'll see some of these young kids that like they can move so fast, they can do this and that so fast, but when it comes to control, you're like, that's not fully developed yet.
Right. Yeah, that seems to come later.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is one of the things I was going to ask you before. I'm going to go ahead and throw it in now. You found USPSA and all that stuff much earlier in life. I found it at 52.
Okay.
And I came from a rifle background, all precision. Everything I ever did was precision. So I have found it much more difficult to accept a larger area of accuracy and shooting fast because I want everything to be, oh no, it's got to be right there on that spot. How did
Right.
you make that transition? Because you started in high power, which is precision oriented, but then you obviously did other disciplines where, you know, A zone in USPSA is acceptable.
Right, right. Well, and you know, I think that it was difficult at first, especially like earlier I was saying how I always thought myself a rifle shooter and then shooting shotgun or pistol. I'm a really good pistol shooter. I have records on every event in Bianchi. But it's it's the control aspect of it. So I think that there's like imagine it like sliders. Like you've got control, you've got accuracy, and there's that's what hit factor is, right? It's a balance. So you
Yep.
have different disciplines where you're like, all right, control's got to be here, accuracy's here, and then other ones where you're like, they both have to be up here. So I think understanding that there are times where your focus just has to shift to one of those or the other, and one has more value than another. Just like if you're shooting an IPSC stage, so when you shoot a world shoot, you have short courses, medium courses, and long courses, and you have like 3 short, 2 medium, and a long every day. So that the balance of points is the same. So say there's really bad weather. Well, you didn't shoot like the biggest stage of the match on the bad weather day and someone had the great weather day. They do it to really kind of keep things equitable and keep balance. And if you have a short course, there are times where you just have to be very clean and very consistent.
We were just talking about the balance. So yeah, that
Yeah.
whole speed versus precision and
Right.
all of
And
that.
yeah, so like we thought we'd go to these, matches for shotgun world shoots where the speed courses we weren't going to do as great at, and we did really very well at them. And you just have to find what is the balance of, do I take that extra shot or not? And when is the time more important than not? And there's a saying like I'm sure you've heard people say like you can't miss fast enough to like make it up
Yeah.
or whatever. We always say, with the exception of Brian Nelson. I don't know if you've ever met Brian Nelson.
Have not.
He's an amazing pistol shooter. He's actually working down in your area with the Marine Corps right now,
Okay.
doing a lot of great stuff. He's a very accomplished shooter. You should have him on your podcast. But so he's the only person who can miss fast enough that he could make something up.
Okay.
Yeah, but so yeah, I'd say, for me, in terms of your question and how did I get comfortable with the speed versus my accuracy discipline background, I think just pushing myself, just going out and saying, okay, all I'm going to do, and it helps having kids who are fairly fast and trying to catch them or keep up with them. So that's always been helpful. Like I'll go out and if say we're practicing something that we know we're trying to hit a certain time, I'll say like, all right, what's Tim doing it in? And then I'll just try to see if I can keep up, if I can be within a few seconds of him. And then I think otherwise, you probably hear people talk about like sight focus versus target focus in
Yes.
like action shooting. And I think there's something that like clicked visually for me when I was shooting Pan American this year. And I'm like, I think I'm a lot more target focused, not intentionally, but like what I was seeing kind of shifted. And so it's really, I think that that's something else that if there was something I think I would love to do, it would be, what is this person actually seeing? Because like you could do a hat camera, you could do an Insta 360, a GoPro, whatever, and you can sort of get an idea, but you don't really know what that person's seeing and when their eyes were moving. Like that to me would be the most interesting, because I feel like you can describe what you do to someone so much, but unless they actually know what you're seeing and when you're seeing it, it's just other information that you're trying to fit into your puzzle you're trying to solve.
I think the aim cam glasses come the closest. I have a pair of those that I use, and I can see my dot on the target.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, Jason Bradley. I had him on before, and he had posted something about he had a pair and he thinks he was going to get rid of them, and I was like, hey, shoot it, use them once before you just get rid of them, because I've been able to, like you were just saying, there was a stage here at the Fredericksburg USPSA match over at the Rod and Gun Club,
Yep.
and I was like, have I been following my sights to the target during transition? I wasn't confident at that match that I wasn't. And I don't know why. I don't remember what it was that was like. So I went back, and there was a specific stage where it was a pretty wide transition. Probably at least a 90-degree transition where I'm shooting this way, and then I'm turning back this way. And when I slowed the video footage down, you can see where my eyes are here and the gun is coming after and then on the target and bang, bang. So I was like, okay, perfect. That's exactly what I should be doing.
So you got your answer from it. Yeah.
I did, specifically because I was able to see, because the camera's literally right here. So with the location right above my pupil, it doesn't interfere with my vision, but I can see what the gun is doing. I can see where I'm looking, that type of thing. If I'm leaning to the right, it doesn't work as well, because it's over my, it's over my right eye. But whenever I, lean or turn hard, it doesn't pick up as well. But for the most part, 75% of the time, I can actually see what I'm doing.
Nice.
So
helpful.
Yeah, that's probably the closest thing I've seen to that. So did you shoot at Perry?
Yes.
What'd you think of the wind there?
It was windy.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
Yeah. So I live in Wisconsin, I grew up in Wisconsin, and we would shoot at Winnequa, and then down at Racine at County Line Rifle Club. And both of those had their wind, but Winnequa's actually got there's elevation change as you get out to 600, but even the 300, 200, like there's little valleys and there's always kind of weird winds going on out there. So it was actually a good place to grow up shooting, because you did have to pay attention to the wind. And I feel like Camp Perry, at least it was fairly consistent.
It's just typically strong.
Yes.
And if you, like, I shot at North Carolina one time, and I shot a 199 at 600, and the one point that I dropped was when the wind let off.
Yeah.
Right as I was breaking the shot, and there were two of us that pulled the trigger almost the same time, and literally a split second before we pulled the trigger, the wind died as we were breaking the shot. So it was just in the 9 ring, so that's where I see offhand at Perry when that wind is kicking. That can be a struggle.
Yeah.
And when it stops, just abruptly stops or changes direction, that's a pain.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's move on then. So all through high school, you're shooting high power, and then you go to college and you shoot air rifle and pistol.
And small bore.
Oh, and small bore.
So the program that Marquette had was primarily small bore, or primarily air rifle, and then we shot small bore and air pistol too. So one of our friends that was on the team, Mike Douglas, he competed in air pistol and free pistol, and he went to the Sydney Olympics. And then there was another gal that was in school there, Mary Beth Larson, and she competed in pentathlon. So our junior year, I think, we went to West Point. It was really funny because the air pistol was just kind of for fun. It was just the 4 of us, like, hey, let's go see what we can do. So we walk into West Point and there's like these two girls and these two guys, and there's all the military academies, and they're so serious. And I think we took second or third. I forget what we did, but we did pretty well. And so it was kind of fun to just walk in and be like, yeah, all right, well, I guess we'll try this.
Okay.
But yeah,
no
so
pressure.
the program was right, no pressure, exactly. The program though was primarily air rifle and small bore. So we did a lot of air rifle.
Okay. Now, how much of a change was that though for you from high power to air rifle?
I mean, there were some things that were very similar, like your offhand, right? You had better, I had better equipment for air rifle. Like I just had a pretty crappy canvas jacket for high power. I didn't have a really nice jacket. I bought myself a really nice Creedmoor leather glove. I still have it, red, white, and blue. That was like my
Nice.
nicest piece of equipment. So, I shot with iron sights. It was a M14 that was, CMP. My dad helped. We re-barreled it, did all that stuff to it. And I had knot blocks. I had those for high power and for small bore. But yeah, it was very low gear, I guess. And then small
Okay.
bore and air rifle, I had a little bit more support with school. But yeah, it was fun. It was interesting. It was everything you'd think NCAA shooting would be.
Okay.
uh, Take that for what it sounds like.
Okay. So I am curious about one thing with air rifle and service rifle. So my question was, when you shot both high power iron sights and air rifle, where did you aim? And what I'm asking is, like, I had my gun zeroed, so the tip of my front sight post was at the bottom edge of the bullseye.
Right.
Did you aim center mass of the bull, or did you aim somewhere else?
So I'd call it more like flat tire, like bottom, but just like bumped
Yeah.
into it. Yeah. So that was kind of like for high power, because small bore you use the little glass, the clear plastic front sight. So it's just concentric circles. There's no post.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe you adjust the size, like depending on the lighting. So it was something very interesting. The range that we shot at Marquette that we practiced on, very bright. It was a bright backdrop. Like the range itself wasn't super bright. There was enough ambient light, but the down range was bright. It was a white background and we had bright lights right there. I actually have a big scar where I burned my leg one time because I bumped the light. There was like a board.
Wow.
A board maybe yay high so that the lights were hidden. You wouldn't see them from behind, right? But they're shining at your
Okay.
target. And we were shooting kneeling, so I had my pants unzipped on the one leg, right? And I had shorts on under the heavy pants. And when I went to step over the light, my side of my shin hit it, and I took off a whole chunk of skin on the light. It's gross.
And
So it was
you
very
still have
bright.
a scar.
Yeah, it was very bright.
Wow.
And yeah, like my worst shooting injury, right? Or put a light bulb. So anyhow, when we would go to different events, sometimes they would not have the same lighting, and it really affected some of us, because you're used to like obtaining a good sight picture, and when there's not enough light with those clear plexiglass, whatever it was, the little sights, you're like, I can't get my sights to look the same, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So
Did you guys ever try practicing in a lower light condition then, or no?
no, I don't think we had enough events. It would be like, I think one year we had NCAA, like we had nationals at a place that had that, and or maybe it was our conference match at a place where the light wasn't the greatest, and we were all kind of like bemoaning, like, this really sucks. What are you gonna do about it? And yeah, so I guess toning down the lights might have been something to consider had it happened a lot or something, but yeah, it's
Okay.
just something. It's interesting. Like it's the same problem. Anyhow.
So did you compete all 4 years in college then?
Yep. Small bore and air rifle, and air pistol was like the last 2 years.
So you traveled around to a lot of different places there too.
Yeah. I mean, it was the Great Midwest Conference, so it was like Ohio, Kentucky. It was just the Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't travel beyond the Midwest then?
So we had, and I had before college gone out to the Olympic Training Center for some stuff. And then we had, like I said, we had nationals the 1 year at West Point. So a little bit here and there.
What was your favorite experience with that? With college
The
shooting?
food, I thought you meant going out to the Olympic Training Center. Like they had the most, it was Colorado Springs. They
Ah,
had the most amazing food. And I come from a family of 7 and I was the second oldest. And so like, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So, like 7 kids, you, I like
it's a lot of
food.
mouths. Yeah,
As
it's a lot of
a, as
mouths
a,
to feed.
yeah, as a teenager, I'm like, I can eat whatever I want as much as I want. It was pretty awesome.
Now, what? All right, I'm just going to go with the order that we had them in. So 3-gun. How how did you get into 3-gun? Like, how did you find it and go, oh, I'm going to shoot this?
So like I said, we started the first action shooting stuff we did was down at Fredericksburg in like 2011. And it was because our kids at the time, we always shot between college and then, just the kids were younger, so we didn't, it was just more recreational. We didn't go and compete. And so the boys they did wrestling with the Marines at Quantico. They did swim team in the summers. And there were points where we're getting up at like 4 a.m. to go to these swim meets. We'd have to work a job, like you'd run clerk of course and make sure the kids get to where they need to go. But you wouldn't see your kids swim necessarily. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing. We're out here at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. We don't even get to spend time with our kids. This is dumb. And so we said, let's go shooting. Let's go back and go shoot some matches. So we started shooting
Go to our
USPSA.
roots.
Uh-huh. And USPSA,
Okay.
and then there were 3-gun, like just local stuff for fun. And the kids were younger. So Andrew, I think when he was like 7 or 8 at the time. So the youngest didn't really shoot the first couple years. And then he was about 9 when we started. We were back home then in Wisconsin, and we go to Winnequa, our local club, and we would shoot the league nights. And everyone's so welcoming. And a couple of the older guys would be like, Andrew, come over here. Can you see through this port? Do we need to bring you a stool or something to stand on? And but I think that goes back again to if you want to get started in shooting competition, start locally, because that's where you're going to find the network of people that are that want to do it. They love it and they want to be there.
Good bit of advice.
Yeah.
So how did you find Bianchi Cup, an NRA action pistol?
So we shot the first bit of USPSA and 3-gun. We all really liked it. We're like, we're okay with this. And Tim, our oldest, actually shot pistol well enough that, some of the local people we shot with were like, hey, we'd like to see him shooting. Like, he should go shoot single stack nationals. And so we did that. And so he...
What year?
Oh,
What year was that?
probably 2012, 13, 14, 15 era. Like,
Okay.
he's shot very well. He has national titles from that, I think. And then, but the Bianchi was... We wanted to be better pistol shooters for 3-gun and everything else we were doing. And my husband's like, you guys should go do it, go shoot it. You're accurate. So Tim and I, my oldest and I, were the ones that did it first. And then we got everybody else roped into it. And so the boys have held the title for junior Bianchi champion for 5 years. Tim won it 4 years, Sean once, and then COVID. And then Andrew twice.
Of course. Okay.
So, yeah. And it's an awful lot of fun. It's different. It's all part-times. You have to you can't have mistakes. So like this year, I was really sad. Last year, 2021, I won the ladies, and it was the first time I'd ever shot open in that event. And I was very happy, and I was very pleased because I'm like, I know I can shoot this well. Well, this year I had a different gun. But like I gauged my ammo. I drop checked it, chamber checked it, everything. It's the same, the gun that has had like no malfunctions. And then
Oh no.
I'm shooting plates prone, and I can't, like, it was like, I don't know, almost a quarter inch out of battery. Couldn't get it in, couldn't get it in, couldn't get it out. And Julie Gollop's on the line with us, and she like flags over one of the Alex, one of the AMU guys. She's like, "Come on, help her!" And we look at the RO. We're like, "Can he?" And he's like, "Sure." And so he just hammered it into battery, like hit it, and then we're like, "Well, now what?" And he was like, "I would shoot it." And I look at the RO. I'm like, "Can I?" And we weren't like, I think everyone really wasn't sure what to do. So I shot it, and then we're like, all right, I guess I could keep going. But I lost half the plates on that
Oh
run.
wow.
So it's really sad. Like, you can't have anything. You have one, and Sean, my middle son, Sean, that was there, he had a malfunction, and like, you have one malfunction, you're out. So it's a
Right.
great lesson in, and I mean, I cleaned that gun. I like cleaning guns. I really do. And I'm very religious about it. Like, we tore the gun apart before the event and then put it all back together and then ran it for the week, but cleaning it very consistently. So it's not like it was dirty. Bruce Pyatt, I was asking him questions. We were talking about stuff with the ammo and all this stuff. He's like, no, everything's right. Like, it just shouldn't have happened. I'm like, I know. And I'm like, it just is what it is. It's just, it's life. Things aren't always going to work.
So you were never able to diagnose what the problem
No,
was, huh?
no. I mean, to me, I wonder,
Wow.
is it because it's gravel on the range and you're going prone? Did
Mm-hmm.
I kick a piece of gravel into something on the mat, and as I'm sliding down, did it somehow, get in the mag well? And the next time I change mags, I'm like, I don't know. It's not worth agonizing about. It sucked. It happened. I can't
Right.
change it. I could sit and agonize about it, or I could say, well, this is a great lesson in, like, how do you overcome, like, you can tell people, like, well, this is what happened. I mean, I did everything I was supposed to do. It's life.
Now I have
Sometimes
a
stuff doesn't work, and it's
yeah.
okay. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean I'm any less of a shooter, or my gear was, or my gun was anything less, or my ammo. Like, everything was done the way it was supposed to be. And it's also
Now
why a lot of people choose not to shoot it. Um, there's a lot of people who are like, why would I waste my energy and my time and my money and go do that? And you have one problem, and you're just screwed.
because it's a different type of shooting and it
Yes,
makes you better.
it's a different type of shooting, but also the mental pressure that is on someone in that match is something that you really cannot, um, you can't recreate that. Like, it's really hard unless you're in a shoot off type situation. It's really hard to have a situation where you're shooting a match and there's a camera like 4 feet from your face watching you because they know you're one of the top people in this, going for this. So that's a very difficult thing to recreate. And if you can put yourself in those situations where you're under pressure often, then you deal with it better when it matters, you know?
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
now those open guns are different than, what people are used to open guns in like USPSA.
Um,
So roundabout, how much does your open gun for Bianchi Cup cost you?
I think it depends on who you have build it, and
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and what parts you use and all of that stuff.
Okay.
Um, it's thousands of dollars. It's not like an inexpensive gun.
Okay.
Um,
Correct.
yeah, and they're different mostly in that you have a barricade shroud, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you have these wings, these little L brackets that you mount the gun on the barricade and you shoot. So when you shoot with your strong hand, you're actually triggering it with your weak hand. And then when you shoot on this side of the barricade, you're holding it and mounting it and grabbing and then triggering it with your normal hand. So there's a little bit of like
Oh, I did
learning.
not know that.
Yeah. So when you mount it on, like, for me, it'd be the right side of the barricade. I draw, transfer. As I'm mounting the gun, I'm grabbing the barricade and holding the barricade shroud
So
to the
you're using
barricade.
your hand like a clamp.
Yes, exactly. And there's
Wow.
different ways
Okay.
people do it. Like, if you look at how Julie Golub does it, she does it a little different than some people do it. So it's kind of a personal thing, and there's a learning curve to it and all that. So it's a great
Right.
discipline for also being really careful. Like, you're grabbing this gun, you've got a hand you're not used to doing stuff with. Like, when are you transferring it? Where are you putting it up? You know, it does require a lot of mental awareness and being right in that moment. Vera Koo, she's won the ladies many times. She's a really great shooter. She told us once we were practicing down in Louisiana for Crawfish Cup, and she said, "You're like when you shoot plates, you have to focus on that plate right in front of you. It can't be the one you just shot or the next one you're going to shoot. It's that plate, and that's where your focus is. Your mental everything is right there." And that, again, is something that's very difficult to get in other disciplines.
So just focus on the moment.
Just focus
Yeah.
on that one, like, little sliver of time and, like, thin
Right.
slicing that little sliver of time. And it's a great skill to have because everything else is gone. And you have to have the mental ability to do that.
So how hard is it then to focus on, because you've got more plate, you've got more steel targets that you've got to knock over. How
Right.
hard is it to focus on not rushing?
It's difficult. You have to practice. So we put more practice into that match than probably most of the other matches, depending on what we have going on that year. But you have to practice, and your cadence and everything. It's really important because you're going to have that kind of in your head for the cadence, and there's different times. So you kind of need a cheat sheet just for the times, because say you're shooting plates, the falling plate event, you go 10, 15, 20, and 25 yards. I hope I'm doing it right. I need the cheat sheet. And then
Sounds
it's
right. Yeah.
it's 5, 6, 7, and 8 seconds. So the time
Oh,
changes
wow.
each distance too. So
Right.
so you have to take into account that you're changing. When you change distances, you're changing the time. And most people who shoot open shoot standing for the first, and then I'd say it's maybe like halves, third, three-quarter. Like the second distance they go, some go standing, some go prone, and the final two distances, everyone will go prone. Even with iron sight guns, people will go prone because it's not worth missing that plate. It's worth 10 points.
But your start position is standing, and at the
Yeah.
beat,
Yes.
you're dropping into the prone and then engaging
Right.
the targets.
And going prone, right.
Right. So
So
you would
it's a
have to
little
practice
violent.
that.
Yes, you have to practice that. And
Yeah.
it's not easy. Like, I don't know if you've seen Julie Golub. She just had to have surgery for her ACL. And it took them some time to finally say, oh, this is what's wrong. And I feel for her because she's like, I have to decide. Do I do it now? Do I wait?
Right.
And so it is a little violent, going prone with a pistol. Some people might be like, that's an old man sport. You're like, well, if you are trying to get down prone, the 20-yard line, or is it 25? I need the cheat sheet. In the practical event, you go back the first distance, you're all standing. The second distance, you're all standing. The third distance, I think it is 25 yards. You have like 3 seconds to go prone. Or 4 seconds. Like the time is so tight. Like it's the third string of fire at that distance is like the most difficult in the entire match, and you're going prone really fast, really violently.
Yeah. And what people have to understand is, that whole time encompasses that because your gun is also holstered, correct?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. So you have 8 seconds to remove the gun from the holster, drop into the prone, establish a good position, and then engage the targets you need to engage at 25 yards.
Right. Hit 6 plates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not practical
So I'm
event.
seeing the low resolution
Oh,
on you.
now did you say uh-oh? But do you still hear me?
I still hear you. Just letting you know.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. You said that was the practical event?
Practical, yeah.
Okay, it says from the appropriate shooting line, the shooter fires at distances from 10 to 50 yards.
Right. 50 is prone back at 50, everyone goes prone.
Okay.
And you have more time for that, though. It's like 7, is it 7, 10, and 14 seconds?
I can't seem to find
I can bring it up.
I was just trying to see what the actual course of fire was,
I will bring up, because we have this handy dandy document my husband made titled Bianchi Cheat Sheet. Okay, so
You know what? I see a picture of a female shooter clamping her gun to the barricade, and I see what you're saying, but the outside arm is the one clamping the gun to the wall, and then the inside arm is
yes,
gripping and pulling the trigger.
yes, it's not quite opening up right for me. There's like an offset.
All right, here we go.
So it's 7
Event-
seconds. You're doing 3 on each in 7 seconds at 25 yards. So that's get down into prone, shoot 3 on each paper target. And there's not an audible signal. You have to watch for the targets to turn. So the targets are bladed facing.
Oh.
So there's no audible
Okay.
start. Yeah.
So then
Lots of
how,
something you need to pay attention to.
since you have competed where it's a visual start, this last year's nationals at Carry Optics, did you have any glitches with that visual start on that stage?
So there were 2 visual start stages. I've had several visual start stages this year. You're
So
talking
it was
about
the one with the lights, like you're standing in the middle of the stage, and
there were
was
lights. No, that was not an issue. I
Okay.
had an issue. There was the stage that was the par-time stage at Carry Optics. And if you were over, if you fired a shot,
Yeah.
there was like a grace period, but if you fired any after, there were penalties. I didn't hear that part. And
Right.
so that really stunk.
Oh.
So
Yeah, that was the
I,
one where you got 0.3 of a second. So going back to Bianchi, there's something in there that I absolutely love, which makes me want to shoot Bianchi just to do it,
okay.
and that is the actual moving targets.
Yes.
I
My
shot
favorite.
moving targets in the military, yes.
Right.
And I saw you just shot moving targets as well in Thailand and
Yes,
Pan American Games, right?
Yeah, so moving targets in IPSC and USPSA are a little different. Like they tend to be swingers, drop turners. And the moving target they had down at Pan American in Florida was just on a track, just a steady, it was right to left. So in Thailand, they had movers that were, I didn't look at the configuration of the actual device they used, but it moved, but it also like swung back and forth while it was moving.
Yeah,
So
it was
those
like
were
wobbling.
those were not easy. They were interesting targets.
But I wish there were more moving targets. I don't mean swingers and bobbers. I mean actual
Movers.
moving targets that you engage in USPSA.
Yeah. It's not very difficult because you just have to establish a lead. When people shoot open,
Right.
you have they call it a stick shift. And people are even putting they're putting multiple front sight blades on their metallic guns, their iron sight, like your limited gun, so that you don't have to lead the mover. They're offset.
That's
So there's
cheating.
ways to kind of get around leading it. But like I shot metallic with just regular iron sights for years. And it's a very good skill to have to understand, like, I'm leading it this much, and at this distance, I'm leading it that much. But it was basically like, okay, right up close, you're just putting your sights on that target, the 10-yard line or whatever it was, 15, 10. Oh, you're putting your sights on that target. I'm like looking at the cheat sheet here. I'm probably not gonna find it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you're just kind of holding like in the black, sort of. I would say for me, it would look like the leading edge of my front sight is on the leading edge of the circle as it's moving. So like if this is
Okay.
the black, you know what I mean? Like as it's going. So
Yeah.
I'm still in the black, right? Whichever way I'm going.
Right.
And then as you
Right.
get out of that, as
You're
you get
just on the
further
leading
back,
edge of it.
right. So then as you get further back, there's like a distance measurement that you can say, or you could look at like what part of your sight needs to be where. So it's easy to say, put the leading edge of your front sight blade on the leading edge of the black for the close one. And then it's easy to say, now take the trailing edge of your front sight blade and put it on the leading edge of the black. And now
Okay.
take the leading edge of your of your rear sight, or whatever it is, like whatever you have to see. So it depends on whether you're
Right.
like math person or are you visual person. Like how do you think about things and what is it you need to see? But once you figure that out, it's just about consistency and a
Right.
very clean trigger pull.
Yeah, and it's at 10, 15, 20, and 25 yards. So yeah, you would, these are all different skills that,
Yeah.
you would have to be able to master.
Yeah. So it is, I mean, it's a very useful match for teaching yourself, like you just said, different skills that you have to master, and they have to be perfect. Like it's not like, you can go to a 3-gun match and get 2 anywhere on paper in some matches. Is that a
And
great skill, or is that a test of how fast you can go and still hopefully hit the paper?
taking it a step further, I feel like for real life skills, for people that, you know, carry concealed every day, that is a skill that would be very valuable to have, knowing how to engage moving targets like that, especially if you are in a job like law enforcement or something where that could definitely be an issue.
Yeah, I think that the moving target is a good skill to have because a lot of people don't understand leading, or
Yeah.
how little you actually do have to lead for certain distances. Uh,
Right.
it even comes down to like your ammunition too, like how fast is your ammo going, and so yeah, there's some very practical applications to it. When another thing, going back to your question about when we got back to shooting and started competing again. So my husband is with the state patrol, and we all started shooting Glocks because for him that was his duty gun. It still is his duty gun, right? So he has
Okay.
more time and experience using it. And he felt like, hey, this is good. And it is interesting that you'll hear every so often about the number of law enforcement who would never go to a match because it would be their own time and no one's giving me ammo, no one's paying for this, they'd have to pay for it themselves.
Right.
But if you have to use these tools in your job, wouldn't you rather be more skilled with it? So you can keep your eye on what you're doing and you're not, I mean, because we see all of the Instagram, TikTok, all the videos about the police officers messing up and grabbing the wrong thing instead of their pepper spray or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
I think that the more you train, the more prepared you are and the better able you are to like have the mental bandwidth to then process what else is going on. You're not worried about how do I use my gun. That's pretty scary to think that there's many police officers who have to think about how to use their firearm.
I totally agree. I mean, most of them, I'm not going to say most, but I'm sure
Many.
there's a fair number that, only shoot the required number of times to qualify
Right.
and
And
maintain that qualification.
even that is really, it's sad because so we knew a police officer who failed a shotgun qual, and it wasn't like it was necessarily his fault. His agency doesn't require him to carry a shotgun. He only quals every so many years. It's not even a yearly thing. And so in that regard, you're like, well, that's kind of on the agency to not have their people. If they're going to require you to qualify with it, it should be annually. You should get some time using it. But I don't think many of them even have access to that firearm. So it's a little,
Wow.
it's silly. And so you do see people saying, well, hey, I don't want to spend my own time, money, et cetera. Like, should a police officer have to buy, say their agency uses a Mossberg something. Should they have to go buy that gun so that they can be proficient with it? Or should their agency, if they require them to use it, give them adequate time to be proficient and adequate training? So it comes back
As
to
they
that.
should.
But I just think for someone in a job where you're going to use a pistol or potentially have to use a pistol, being able to use it without having to consciously focus all your effort on that is going to help you be able to do everything else you're doing better.
Now, if someone wanted to shoot Bianchi, can they just get on practice score and find a match for that, or?
So there's not as many matches as, say, USPSA. There's some in Missouri. There's some in Louisiana. There's 1 or 2 in Michigan, and then out in Cheyenne. So there is a Facebook group. It might be like North American Practical Shoot Action Pistol. I can find that and send it to you. The exact name of the Facebook
Okay,
group.
yeah.
There is a Facebook group for Action Pistol.
I'll put that in the show notes so that if anybody wants to look into that, they could.
Yeah, you can find a match. So they're not as frequent. There's not as many, but they're out there.
Okay.
And a lot of people will say, well, the mover, like they couldn't practice the mover or they couldn't practice barricades. We pound a 2x4 into the ground, 2 2x4s, and we screw some plywood to it, and we make a barricade. Is it perfect? No. Does it get you experience to figure out how you're going to transfer the gun or hand it or, grab on, mount the gun, grip the barricade? Yes. So I think a lot of people, if you want to do something, you'll find ways to do it, not excuses.
And again, I mean, I think it would just be a fun match to shoot, to go out and see what you can do on a moving target, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
sure you could ask other competitors, like, hey, where are you holding at 25 yards? So at least I have an idea.
Yes. So that is one of the things, too, that is invaluable. So CMP took over or is going to be involved in running the Bianchi Cup this year. And they came last year to the event, and there are some people giving them advice who've been involved with the match for years. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how things go. But one of the things that a lot of us gave them feedback on was that they should not change the venue, because there is the main range at Green Valley in Missouri, and then there is the practice range. And the practice range has enough to do all 4 events. They actually can set up 2 movers, and then there's a whole place where you could go and check your zero and everything. There's a zero range. But the information, like sharing that sort of thing, like you have a question, there's all these really experienced people there, Doug, Rob Latham, like everybody's there and everybody's shooting, and people will share, they'll help you, they'll, like if you have some kind of an issue going on, people are willing to help. And then like the AMU guys are there, the AMU armorers are there, Cylinder and Slide from Nebraska, they used to come out. So like there was a lot of support, and it's a good match. So I'd like to see it grow back up again, because NRA took it over for a few years and it really kind of tanked. So now it's nice to see it kind of building back up.
It'd be the same, moving it from where, because it's in Missouri, isn't it?
It's in Missouri, yes.
Yeah, so that would be the equivalent of moving the high-powered
Perry.
national matches away from Perry.
Right.
After
Where
being there
the
for-
infrastructure, the history,
Yeah,
the
everything's set up.
infrastructure, yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, that's just quite the experience. So I guess it was here, maybe in Fredericksburg, you shot your first USPSA match?
For me, that might be the first place. I know my husband shot some when we were in college, so like 98 or so. 97.
So is that where you two met, was in college?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Was he on the air rifle and pistol team as well?
Yes.
Ah, okay. So that's all right.
That's how we met. Yep.
Well, and that's where one of my questions was going to be, how did you meet someone who was so into shooting like you, but problem solved, question answered. You shot your first match here in Fredericksburg, so 20 teens, we'll call it, sometime after 2010.
2011, I think, yeah.
How did you get from that first match to where you are now with everything else that you've been shooting?
I like a lot of work. Just we competed a lot. We worked at what we're doing, and then kind of, I think the other side is like sharing what we're doing outside of just going to a match. There's not many families. I think we're one of the only families that like everybody competes. There's a lot of parents and their kids, or a mom and a dad and kids, but there's not many where the entire family competes. And I think that that's something that I wish more people would try. We'll see a lot of people at matches who are like, oh my gosh, I gotta bring my wife to a match, like it's their weekend to get away and have fun. And there's a lot of guys who literally will say, well, I don't think men want women at matches. I don't think they want their wife there. They want to get away and have fun. And that's fine. Everybody's got a different reason why they do things.
Right.
But you should still welcome the people whose wives want to be there and whose kids want to be there. And you shouldn't treat them like, like that's an irritation. I don't want that around. Because
I was trying to get my wife into it, but it never stuck.
Well, and I think sometimes, so this is why I'm talking about this, is that I think the experience those people have when they come to a range is very instrumental in whether they decide they want to do this or not. So like I said, I started, my dad, my sisters, my mom, we all went to this class, and everyone was like, oh yay, there's like 4 girls here. And there were other women there too, that people wanted us to be there. The very first big 3-gun match we shot, the FNH 3-gun back in 2012, we were still living out in Virginia at the time. And our youngest, Andrew, was like 8, and he met Tabor Bright. And he's now with Ruger, but he worked with FN at the time. And Tabor was running a side match. And he kind of met us, and we chatted for a bit. And then he's like, hey, why don't you come up here and help me, to our youngest? So they become friends. And like, we still, like, when we get down to Texas, we stop and see Tabor. And he was so welcoming, and we were like, other people we knew locally were like, oh yeah, he can go, like, Tabor's a good dude, he'll keep an eye, like, he can totally go hang out with him. And he helped him, and you know, like, whether it was taking names of people and telling him what's happening or whatever, but it was just like a stationary side match that he helped him run. But I think his perception of what was going to happen at a match and whether he wants to be there was changed because of that. And if your wife or someone's wife or daughter or son, they come along and they're like, someone's rolling their eyes about this other person, extra kid, extra wife, extra, you know, whatever. If the environment isn't welcoming, it's not going to be something they want to do.
Right.
So I think that how it's introduced and how someone's exposed to it does matter.
Well, and she enjoys going to the range and shooting, but I don't think she enjoys the competition side of it. So,
and that's something that so our youngest, again, he would, when I asked him when he was like 10, 11, do you like it? And he would say, it's stressful. And I said, well, yes, it is stressful, but don't you think that you're learning, that you're more capable because you've done something under stress? And whether that stress is other people watching you, feeling like you're getting judged, being on the clock. So there is a point where I think it kind of comes down to your personality, but it is good to push yourself outside your comfort zone and to realize that you can fail. People can laugh at you. People could say like, so-and-so brought his wife again. And I won't make the gesture I would make on your show. But honestly, like, people need to learn, like, nope, it's okay. Or even the people who don't like firearms and who are like, oh, so-and-so and their guns, too bad. There's things people do that I don't like. I'm not going to, try to shame them for shopping for expensive purses or shoes, because I like shoes too, but, I don't know, like, you're free, you live in a free country, you're free to think what you want and do what you want.
Amen. Now, have you shot any IDPA?
I shot one match for the purpose of writing an article because we just really don't have that much around us. And I do think there are, again, valuable skills to be had, like retaining a magazine, thinking about cover versus concealment and all those sorts of things. Like, those are great skills, and they are very practical. Do I want to go shoot it? Not really, because you hear stories. I mean, when you compete, you hear stories about events and about organizations, and you hear like the kind of craziness that goes on. And I feel like that can stay over there.
It seems to be growing in popularity with the higher level shooters, though. I mean, Nils, JJ, they're starting to migrate a little bit and shoot that a little more.
So something I would say from my perspective is that sometimes there's people who shoot things because they have a sponsor they work with that wants them to shoot things. And I'm not saying anything about those two people you mentioned and their motivation for shooting it or not. I'm just saying sometimes you will see people are saying like, well, hey, our gun or this thing we're bringing to market or this piece of gear fits this, and they want to sell it there. So they want to get attention there. So they're like, hey, we want you to go shoot this.
Well, and I totally agree with you. I mean, IDPA Nationals was heavily sponsored by Beretta. So JJ shot the match. Nils just went to Europe and shot the European IDPA Nationals because it was heavily sponsored by Canik. So yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I track you, and I totally agree. And maybe they're being PC a little bit by, talking about the match and how much fun they had, but there are some others, the Williams sisters.
I'm not saying that you can't have fun, or I don't think it could be fun. I'm just saying it's not a discipline that has ever, like, there's really nothing local to us. And so it's not something that's really been on our radar.
Right.
Just like
kind of like Bianchi Cup for me.
Right. And we could go shoot trap, but I don't know. Like running around with my gun as fast as I can, loading it and trying to spin a spinner and crazy stuff.
Right. That's much more fun.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Before we get past Bianchi,
Okay.
5 national records in Bianchi pistol. So what are we talking about here?
So there's 4 events.
Yep.
So I've set the record on the mover multiple times, like broken my own record. So
Okay.
that's probably, so like you know what I mean? So there's
Now, when you
multiple
say
movers.
broken your own record, are we talking score, time, what?
So like I set a national record and then I set a new one. So it would be score because the mover,
Okay.
everything in Bianchi is par time. So there's no.
So you have to do it within a certain time, and it's
Right.
all score only.
It's all scored. There's no like go faster
Okay.
and you get more anything. It's just within the par time.
So it's like 300-yard rapid fire in high power rifle. You
Yeah.
have 70 seconds from a standing to sitting position or standing to prone,
Exactly.
and your
And this
score is your score.
Right.
So you have 5 score. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So
And it might be different now. Like I haven't looked. So they have been historically, NRA has kept track of those records, and it's taken a while to get it done. And then I think with NRA's involvement in Bianchi Cup and then non-involvement in Bianchi Cup, I think there's been some like, we don't care. And I know a bunch of records were getting updated. So, because I think Tim has some that he set when he was a junior that he's never gotten the stuff for. So,
All right, so now I want to IPSC rifle and shotgun. And I see on your website that 2017 IPSC Rifle World Shoot Ladies Open Division gold medal team. 2015 and 2018 IPSC Shotgun World Shoot Ladies Standard Division gold medal teams. Well, Becky, I appreciate you coming on. Now, we're going to have to pick another time where you've got a little bit of time and we can finish the conversation because I have a bunch more questions about IPSC World Shoots, your recent trip to Thailand and stuff like that, okay?
okay, that sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Now, are you by chance going to be at SHOT Show?
I am. Are you?
I am.
Well, we'll have to
So-
connect.
Okay. My wife will be with me, so we can talk to her about shooting.
I can tell her she should come to the range and enjoy it. No,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. That'll be awesome to meet you in person.
Okay, awesome. Well, Becky, thank you for coming on. Good luck with everything going on on the property.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show and chatting. It was really a good conversation.
And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
All right, you take care, David.
Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.